In this episode, we're talking about how to win.
Hey, sure.
Three things for this series. Number one.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Increase Your Impact YouTube channel. And today we're going to talk about an Increase Your Impact podcast episode right here that we did this past week, where we talked about winning. And we really highlighted Coach Larry Gelwicks, who was the head coach of a Highland High School rugby team, and they won at an amazing clip. 400 and something wins, 10 losses in his career, and he constantly asked his players, what's important now? Now you see the fancy acronym, WIN. What's important now? And before we get into this, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe, hit the bell so you know when the next video comes out. Now, this is a very interesting question. What's important now? Because what it does, it helps you focus on the here and now. Really focus on winning. So if you were to ask yourself, what's important now? What would you say? This question is helpful for athletes. It's helpful for coaches. It's helpful for business professionals, for students, for parents, you name it. What's important now? Now, what that question does, it not only helps you identify what you need to focus on, but it also helps you identify what you need to ignore. There was one time I was working with an athlete and he comes up to me and he goes, I'm all over the place. I don't know where to put my mind. And so I asked him a simple question, where should you put your mind? He looked at me and he said, I don't know. There's a lot of different places I can put my mind, but the distractions of the fans, the distractions of the past, the future are pulling my attention every which way. And so we decided to do a simple exercise. I pulled out a blank sheet of paper. I made a T-chart. On one side, I put things you should focus on, and on the other side, I put things you should ignore. And we sat there for about 20 minutes and we identified what he needs to fill out on both ends. What are the things you need to focus on when you're here? What are the things you need to focus on when you're here? What's the things you need to focus on when you're here? And we spent time to articulate and literally write down the things he needed to focus on. Now, what we noticed about his list is that it was very small. And these things are called relevant cues, or in other words, things that are important. They're relevant. They're things that will affect performance. On the other side of the page, we wrote down things that he could ignore. This is the past. This is the future. This is what people think about him. This is things he has absolutely no control over, and what we call this side is irrelevant cues, or in other words, things that don't matter. Now, when you are in the zone and playing at your absolute best or performing at your best, even if you're not an athlete, what you're doing is your mind is so focused on relevant cues, things that matter. Now, when you're not performing at your best, chances are you're doing one of two things. You're either focused on irrelevant cues, things that don't matter, or you're so focused on one relevant cue that it's at the expense of not focusing on other relevant cues. Let me give you an example of this. This is when you're so focused on your sport or fitness that you're not even paying attention to your important relationships like family. Or you're so focused on work that you're neglecting your health. Or you're so focused on your health that you're neglecting your finances. That's what it looks like to be so focused on a relevant cue, which you think, oh, this is good, but not at the expense of all the other relevant cues or things that are important. So with this player, he goes out, he plays the game. During the game, he comes up to me, he goes, it's helping, it's working. I said, how so? And his answer was interesting. It wasn't that it was helping him focus necessarily. It was helping him be alert on when his mind was going towards things that he should ignore. He said, I know what to ignore now. And he went about playing his game and doing what he did. And so for those of you who are asking yourself the question, what's important now? I would suggest you do the exact same episode, or same exercise rather. Go down and write, what are the things that matter and what are the things that don't matter? And what a cool thing happens when you actually make this list and you can stare at this list, your brain starts to work for you. That good old prefrontal cortex is now going to start scanning your environment, trying to help you. And the moment your mind starts to veer off towards things that don't matter, irrelevant cues, things you should not be focusing on, your mind's going to send off the alerting system. and say, you said you weren't gonna focus on that, so that you can then grab it and focus on what matters most. In order for the mind to truly focus, to be where your feet are, it needs an anchor. It needs something to focus on. You can't just tell yourself, focus, pay attention. Pay attention on what? Focus on what? So in order to help yourself out, identify what does matter most, what is important in this situation, so that when your mind wanders and you ask yourself, what's important now? Your mind will be able to go back to those things that are indeed important for you. This is a very important question to ask yourself. And I love the fact that Coach Larry Gelwicks asked his players this. And it's no wonder that they were so successful. It's because they had a leader who constantly asked that question, what's important now? What's important now? And if you ask yourself that question constantly, what's important now, it's gonna help you recalibrate your attention, recalibrate your focus to get you to lock in on the things that matter most. It's easier said than done. It's sometimes you get in the heat of the moment. Sometimes you get in a situation where you're hungry, you're angry, you're lonely, you're tired, your attention span is small, you have so many things going on, and it's very difficult to keep your attention. That's why this recalibrating question is so important. Another caveat, another key important thing to take into consideration, before you go into a game, before you go into a stressful moment, before you go into something where you know you're going to be susceptible to uncertainty or to chaos or to a complex situation, you want to identify beforehand, what do I need to focus on? And what are things that can possibly derail my focus, that could possibly derail my attention, so that when it happens, you're gonna have a plan. You could already account for it. You can tell yourself and smile and say, hey, I expected this to happen. You also need to understand that there's the unexpected that's gonna happen. There are things that are going to be presented to you that you didn't even think about happening. And that's life. That's just part of life. So today's video, want to reiterate, ask yourself the question, what's important now? That's the key to winning. W-I-N. And as you constantly focus on winning, what's important now? What's important now? You're going to make better decisions. And when you make better decisions, it leads to clearer thinking, and clearer thinking leads to better performance. And then you go back and you learn and you get better and better and better. And so my question to you is, how is this question helpful for you? What's important now? How do you think that can benefit you as a student, as a teacher, as a leader, as a parent? I want to hear your thoughts. Please share with us in the comments what you think. And again, next week, come back, learn from us, learn from this video, share with us some of your learnings. Teach us what you're going through. How are you applying these videos in everything you do? Thank you for joining us. Come back next week and look forward to having a new video with some new stories and strategies to help you be a better version of yourself.